Samsaradava Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Samsaradava Nalalidaloka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyanam Gurunanavasyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Gurunanavasyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramarjanado Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Joktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satvana Triptam Kritva eva trupti Vajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Davayara Parao Madhura Leela Gunarupa Namnam Shiradikama Davayara Parao Madhura Leela Pratikshana Dhanalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Ne kunja yuno Rati keli sidhyai Jayali Vere Jokte Apekshaniya Tatratidaksha Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Satchadhari Dena Shamasta Shastri Rukta Tathava Vyataiva Sadhavi Satchadhari Dena Shamasta Shastri Kintu Pravarja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadam Bhagavat Prasadam Yasya Prasadam Dayam Stovam Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Pachatadisha Tarine Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Chaitanya Chaitanya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, ha, Hare Rama, oh, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Bo. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Nama Krishna Jadavaye Nama Jadavaye Madhavaye Kesavaye Nama Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Bo. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Radha Nila Madhava, Radha Nila Madhava, Radhe Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Hari bol Nitai Gaur Hari bol Hari bol Hari bol Nitai Gaur Pramanande Hari bol. Jai Vishnu Paraparamhansa Prabhajakacharya Sutara Sarasishima. His Divine Grace of Bhacharvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Practitioner of Viviti Samstavakacharya Vaishnava Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhar Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Vatara Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhuj Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai. Nanta Kudi Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन के जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमान गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावरण अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जय की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहत् निदांग ट्रांसलेटर भक्ति श्री विष्णु सेवा की जय। श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप कुंदा राधा कुंसम कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। तेलोश विशेष राधा नील माधव की जय। परम करुणा श्री गौर निताय की जय। जगन्नाथ बादेव सुभद्रा माई की जय। जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर हरि प्रेमानंदे। All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories. Glory to Shri Guru Shri Gaur. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Naraya.
प्रह्लादलाददायिने हिरण्यकशिपूर्वक्षः शीलटङ्कानकालये इतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बहिर्नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलवरेणकाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गां दलिता हिरण्यकशिपोर्तनुभृङ्गां केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
जय श्री भक्ति पद सर्वज्ञनाथ कृष्ण भगवान की जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय गौर प्रमानंद श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रिय कृष्ण सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादेवी सतमताय Jai Tulasi Devai Jai Krishna Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Brindai Tulasi Devai Jai Krishna Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Srimati Tulasi Maharani Brinda Devi
Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो
जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूरा न हो
तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूरा
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन बासी
कृपा करे
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हरिवो सदा जुगल रूपरासी এই নিবেদনা ধারো সাখীর অনুগাতা করো सेवा अधिकारा दिए करो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे कोई जीना मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
Brahma Hatari Kanisa Tani Tani Panasanti Pade Pade
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani Sapa Pane Brahma Kani Kanisa Tani Panasanti
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani Sapa Pane Brahma Kani Kanisa Tani Panasanti
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai.
Shri Vrindaye Tulasi Vivai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namah. Vrindaye Tulasi Vivai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namah. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namah. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Oh, Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. I desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make me resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful essence of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Davidan as a virgin. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own servant. Beginning fallen and lonely servant Krishna, please. May I always sing the love of Shri Radha, Gold, Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Mama ki Jai Bami Krishna Naraga Jena tarorapi saishta. This Sankirtan movement is a prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the light of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we always anxious. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord and strong in street, one should be more taller than that tree, devoid of sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on the end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant anywhere in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditioned. Shri Shri Shikastakam Ki Jai. Om Mahavira Krishna. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme bodies who dedicate life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. Blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in Vedas as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. Instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. do not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guide against his influences in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our respectful blessings unto all the Vaishnavas devoted to the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the following conditions of souls.
Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhuttari Srimati Bhaktivinoda Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Namaste Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadyasya yato niviyad itaratas chati swavigyaswarat.
Janmadyasya yatam vayaritaratas chati swavigyaswarat.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tejo Varimedam Yata Vinimayo Yatras Trisargo Mirsha.
Tejo Varimedam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mirsha.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute
And the
truth.
primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction to manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
It is she only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge into the heart of Brahmaji.
The original living being.
The original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations.
Of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
Of water seen on fire, land seen on water.
Only because of him do the material universes.
Only because of him do the material universes.
Temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature.
Temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
Who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode.
Who is eternally existent in his transcendental abode.
Which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
Which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaitravutra.
Dharma projita kaitavutra.
Paramo nirmatsranam satam.
Paramo nirmatsranam.
Vedyam vastavam atra vastu.
Vedyam vastavam atra vastu.
Shivadam tapatrayon mulanam.
Shivadam tapotrimulanam.
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite.
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite.
Kim va parer ishvaraha.
Kim va parer ishvaraha.
Sadyo hridi avarudyatitra.
Sadyo hridi avarudyatitra.
Kriti bihi sususabhistakshanat.
Kriti bihi sususabhistakshanat.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are material motivated.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth.
This Bhagavad Puran propounds the high truth.
Which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
Which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, their reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva's maturity.
Is sufficient in itself for God realization.
It's sufficient in itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam.
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam.
By this culture of knowledge.
By this culture of knowledge.
The Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam.
Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam.
Sukamukad amrita dravya samyutam.
Sukamukadamrita trava sangitam.
Pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam.
Pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam.
Buhur aho raskabu vibhavkaha.
Muhura horusika.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam. The mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures.
The mature fruit of the desired true Vedic.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Although its nectar and juice was already relishable for all,
although its nectar and juice was already relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
Including liberated.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hridyantaksto hi Bhadrani.
Hridyantaksto hi Bhadrani.
Vidunati Suhitsatam.
Vidunati Suhitsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures.
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita.
Or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita.
Is itself righteous activity.
It is self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
and for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart,
acts as a best wishing friend,
acts as the best wishing friend,
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
And purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing from him.
Nastapresu Bhadresu
Nastapresu Bhadresu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam.
As he hears more about Krishna Bhagavatam.
And from the devotees.
And from the devotees.
He becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
He becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo Bhava
Tadarajastamo Bhava
Kamalobhadayaschaye
Kamalobhadayaschaye
Cheta Itairanabhidam
Cheta Itairanabhidam
Stitvam Sattve Prasidati.
Stitvam Sarve Prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
one
becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance.
One becomes free from the mode of passion and ignorance.
And thus, material lust and avarice are diminished.
And thus, material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasanamanaso.
Evam prasanamanaso.
Bhagavat bhakti yogataha.
Bhagavat bhakti yogataha.
Bhagavat tattva vijnanam.
Bhagavat tattva vijnanam.
Mukta sangasya jayate.
Mukta sangasya jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
when his impurities are wiped away,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness.
The candidate remains steady in his position of
becomes
pure goodness,
enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
And understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis.
Vidyate hridaya grantis.
Chidyante sarvasamsaya.
Chidyante sarvasamsaya.
Siyante chasya karmani.
Siyante chasya karmani.
Drista evatmanishvare.
Drista evatmanishvare.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection.
Thus, the Bhakti Yoga severs the heart of material affection.
And enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram.
And enables one to come to the stage of samsayam samagram.
Understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead.
The understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Can one understand the science?
Shri Guru Vastika prayers. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy.
Spiritual master receives benediction from the ocean of mercy.
Just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it.
Just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish
so
it.
The spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world.
So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world.
By extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
By extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
Who is in the ocean of auspicious qualities.
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy.
chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy,
singing and playing musical instruments.
singing and playing musical
The
instruments.
spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Sri Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes his bodily hairs stand on end.
He feels quivering in his body,
He feels quivering in his body,
and tears flow from his eyes like waves.
and tears flow from his eyes like
I offer my respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual.
The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna.
The spiritual master always engaged in the temple worship, Shri Radha and Krishna.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They clean their temple
clean their
and
temple,
perform other similar worship of the
and
Lord.
perform other similar worship.
I offer my respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual.
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
The spiritual master always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked.
Analyzed as that which is licked, chewed, drank, and
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada,
when the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad,
he is satisfied.
he is satisfied.
I offer my respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 12. Shri Sukha Uvacha Nama Parasmai Purushaya Bhuyase Sad Udbhavastana Nirodha Lilaya Grihita Shakti Tritayaya Dehinam
Grihita Shakti Tritayaya Deinam
Antar Bhavayanupalakshya Vartamane.
Antar Bhavayanu Palakchavatmane.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Sukadeva Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, for the creation of the material world, accepts the 3 modes of nature. He is the complete whole residing within the body of everyone, and his ways are inconceivable." Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This material world is a manifestation of the 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance, and the Supreme Lord, for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the manifested world, accepts 3 predominating forms as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankara, or Shiva. As Vishnu, he enters into every body materially created. As Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he enters into every universe, and as Shirodakshaya Vishnu, he enters the body of every living being. Lord Shri Krishna, being the origin of all Vishnu Tattvas, is addressed here as Parapumam, or Purushottamam, as described in the Bhagavad Gita 15:18. He is the complete whole. The Purusha avatars are therefore his plenary expansions. Bhakti Yoga is the only process by which one can become competent to know him, because the empiric philosophers and mystics cannot conceive of the personality of Godhead. He is called Anupalakshya Vartamane, the Lord of the inconceivable way, or Bhakti Yoga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sukadeva Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, for the creation of the material world, accepts the 3 modes of nature. He is the complete whole, residing within the body of everyone, and his ways are inconceivable." Well, this is a very important verse, because it explains this amazing point about God, or Krishna, who is Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva. That means that he is inconceivably and simultaneously one and different. And this is impossible for a mundane person to understand. Mundane people think you understand things by academic study. Wrong. That will not help you understand anything about spiritual life. It may help you to understand a few things in the material world, but even that is incomplete. So, then how do you understand? Well, it's a mysterious thing. You understand through devotional service. Most people will say, that's nonsense. But no, it's not nonsense. Because devotional service is something inconceivable for a materialist, but reality for a devotee. So, that's why in the last line it explains this amazing point. It says, he is called Anupalakshya Vartamane, the Lord of the inconceivable way, or Bhakti Yoga. Now you might say, oh, what's so inconceivable about Bhakti Yoga? You chant Hare Krishna, you respect Prasadam, you regularly hear the Vedas, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and you come to the temple and do service. What's so inconceivable about that? Well, it's inconceivable, but simply by doing that, you can go back to Godhead. That's what's inconceivable. People say, well, I go to church and I eat meat every once in a while, but so what? It's food, isn't it? And I chant hallelujah in church, and I chant hoo ba 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 boo 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 when I go to the disco or the bar, and so I'm chanting also. And I do some service. I go to Goodwill and I do some service there. Well, see, this last point is so far out that hardly anyone can understand it. He says that because the empiric philosophers and mystic yogis cannot conceive of the personality of Godhead, he is called Anupalakshya Vartamane, the Lord of the inconceivable way, or Bhakti Yoga. This is an amazing statement because it's a fact. Bhakti Yoga is inconceivable for the mundaners, the empiricists. They don't think it has any relevance to truth, and for them truth is only the material nature. So they go around in circles their whole life, from one inconsistency to another, and they claim to be rational, but in everything they do, they're irrational. And so they never come to the conclusion that Bhakti Yoga is the only way to understand the truth of life. Bhaktya mam abhijananti yavanyaschasmi tattvatra. So this tattva, or the absolute truth of existence, can only be understood by Bhakti Yoga. And what's even more inconceivable is that absolute truth is a person. For the Mayavadis, that's nonsense. But actually, they are nonsense. The absolute truth not only is inconceivable for the materialists, but when we say it's a person, they say, oh, that's it. Now I know you guys are crazy. How can a person be perfect? Well, yes, Krishna is perfect in every way. Now we're going to hear how. This is explained first in the Bhagavad Gita and then in much more depth in the Brahma Samhita. In the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, 20th verse, it's a very interesting verse, which says, Parastasmat tubhavo nyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yasa sarve sabhutesu nasatsu na vinasyati. Yet there is another unmanifest nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Now, no empiricist or materialist would accept this statement. What? You say there's another world? Well, we talk about parallel realities, but they're all material. No. And it's unmanifest nature. How can something be unmanifest and exist? This is all contradictory to the materialists. And it's eternal, and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter, and is supreme and never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. This is all unfathomable statements for materialists. And Prabhupada says, Krishna's superior spiritual energy is transcendental and eternal. Well, the materialists say there's no such thing as there's such a spiritual energy that's transcendental and eternal. It is beyond all the changes of material nature, which is manifest and annihilated during the days and nights of Brahma. Krishna's superior energy is completely opposite in quality to material nature. Superior and inferior nature are explained in the 7th chapter. So this is another tease by Prabhupada. So he says it's all explained in the 7th chapter. Oh, wait a minute. Where is that explained exactly? Well, if we go to the 7th chapter, you'll see there are a lot of things that are explained there. But, so it says, superior and inferior nature are explained in the 7th chapter. Okay, so, yes, we know that the inferior nature is explained in the 7th chapter, because it says, Daivihi esa gunamahi, mama maya duratya, mami viye pupadyante, maya miyutam tarantite. 7:14 says that there is a superior and inferior nature. It says, the divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. So, he's calling the material nature divine energy of mind. Why? Because it's eternal. It's also spiritual. Most people, the materialists say, that's crazy, that's not possible. But it is. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So, that is an explanation of the material nature. And it's illusory in the sense that it is not manifest eternally, because it becomes unmanifest at a certain point, and you cannot fathom it. Then it says, a little bit later on, it says, Bhavanam janmanamante gyanavamam prapadyante vasudeva saramiti samahatma sadurlabham. It says, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes, and all that is, such a great soul is very rare. Well, the materialists say, what? What are you talking about? Many births and deaths. We only live once, and then we die, and it's all over. It's like and then it takes such a long time to understand God. Well, we understand God. There's no God. So what's there to understand? And then one surrenders unto me. Why should we surrender unto something that's mythological? We make our own decisions. We're independent. So at every word of the Shastra the materialist is going to refuse to accept it. They reject everything. That's the original cancel culture. People have been rejecting the existence of God since the beginning of time. That's called cancel culture. You cancel something that's the truth. And then you live in a strange world of illusion. Right? And to know that Krishna, one individual, is the cause of everything, the cause of all causes, and he's not caused, all this is like gibberish to the materialists. They can't accept any one of these statements. So, in the purport to this verse, it says, the living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning toward impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. Now, Socrates and Plato would have rejected this statement because they say that there is some type of spiritual realm, but it's static. And it has perfect forms that never change. They would not accept that it's dynamic, because for them, if it's dynamic, then it's subject to change. You see? So we say that there's so many speculations out there. To wade through all those speculations is almost impossible for an individual who has not met a pure devotee or come in contact with Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnava Acharyas. They would reject every one of these statements that are made by Krishna. And they do that. And they ignore Bhagavad Gita. And then it says, in the beginning of spiritualism, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning toward impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Shri Krishna's mercy is everything, that he is the cause of all causes, and that the material manifestation is not independent from him. So now we see the change from the cancel culture to acceptance culture, acceptance of the truth. One, that the Supreme Absolute Truth is a person. And one can understand that person through devotional service. So, person, devotional service. But to engage in devotional service, one must surrender. So point number 3. So first there's a person who's perfect, that's Krishna, and then he can be understood through devotional service, but it's a process of complete surrender to the Lord. And then one becomes attached to Krishna rather than attached to money, houses, ethnicity, race, all these illusory things. And at that time, one can understand that Lord Krishna's mercy is everything. I don't need the mercy of Biden or Trump or this one or that one. I just need the mercy of Krishna. And that's everything for the devotee. And that Krishna is the cause of all causes. There's no cause beyond him. And that this material manifestation is not independent from him. These are all conclusions. This is all the acceptance culture, not the cancel culture. All these things are canceled by the materialists, but accepted by the devotees on their path back to Godhead. he realizes that the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness. What is a perverted reflection of spiritual variegated? That means in the spiritual world, everything that exists in the material world is existing in its pure form in the spiritual world. Now, there are certain things that are not in the spiritual world, such as demons. You only hear about the demons in the spiritual world. You never see them because they're not there. And that everything in the material world is a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness, and the devotee realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Now, the materialists would reject that. In everything is a relationship with God. Well, first of all, they don't believe God exists, right? And they think that everything is relative. There's no absolute truth. So there's so many ways that people are illusion in the material world, right? And this is what's being taught in school. This is the ultimate cancel culture that's been going on since the beginning of time, since we decided to walk away from Krishna. This has been going on. We've been canceling all these things. Thus he thinks everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Yeah, that's called spiritual vision. Nothing is independent of the Lord. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. This is the highest goal of life. Who will admit that? I mean, you could ask so many people, what's the highest goal in life? They'd say, well, I want to take care of my family. I want to have a good job. I want to have enough money to put food on the table and extra money to buy nice gadgets, cars and houses and boats. I remember one time I went to this one devotee's house, and his brother and his brother's wife drove by the house, and they were blowing on their horn. And my friend looked out the window, and his brother was calling him, come on out, take a look, what I got. So he walked out. I also walked out with him. And his brother was showing off a brand new boat that he bought. So he has his pickup truck, and behind the pickup truck he has this huge boat that he bought. You know, and he was so proud of the new boat. You see. So this is what people are doing. They want to earn money, and then they want to get more money to buy all these different gadgets, you know, boats and cell phones and this car and that car and clothes and jewelry and shoes. You know, instead of buying Payless shoes, they go and buy these shoes that cost, you know, $200 a pair. And women buy shoes, sometimes they're worth $3,000. Did you know that? What was it? This guy Marcos, when he was a dictator of the Philippines, his wife had 3,000 pairs of shoes, and they would show, you know, on television, you know, she has a whole gigantic room with all different types of shoes for her only. Well, let's see, 3,000. How many days are there in the years, right? It's 365. So she would have to go more than 10 years to wear every one of those shoes. You see how crazy people are, right? But this is material life. The more you have, the more of a person you are, right? And the less you have, the less of a person you are. But actually, it's just the opposite in the spiritual life, right? So everything is opposite in Kali Yuga. One time Prabhupada told me that. He said, these karmis, he said, they have everything backwards. Now we're beginning to see. Look, in one short paragraph, Prabhupada summarizes the positive culture. And then we realize all these things that are positive, they're negated today. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna as the highest goal. People say, surrender? How can I be free if I surrender? Well, yeah, if you surrender to a mundane person, you're not going to be free. But if you surrender to Krishna, you're free. But that doesn't make sense to them. They say, it's not rational. How can I be free if I surrender to someone? You see? Such surrendered great souls are very rare. Obviously, today, there'd be one in, let's see, how many people are there in the world now? There's, what is it, 7 billion people, right? So that would be one person in a billion. That means there are only like 7 people in the world that are great souls. Yes, that's a fact. This verse is very nicely explained in the 3rd chapter, verses 14 and 15 of the Svitasvatara Upanishad. Sahasra Sirsa Purushaha, Sahasraksha Sahasrapat, Sabumim Vishvato Vitva, Tvaitistad Dasangulam, Purusha Evadam Sarvam Yad Bhutam Yadschabhavyam, Bhutam Ritat Vasye Sano, Yad Anenat Tirohati. So this is from the Purusha Sukta prayers. And it says, oh, by the way, it doesn't give the translation, but you have to find the translation. The translation is, He is all that exists and all that will be. He is the Lord of immortality. And the Lord of immortality and all that is nourished by food. Lord Vishnu has thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, thousands of feet. He is encompassing the whole universe. He still extends beyond it. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at this. I've written it. It's so small I can hardly find it. He still extends beyond it by a certain number of fingers, right? He is infinite, and he pervades this entire universe, something like that. Okay. Is that what it says? Okay. So this is called this verse 719. This is called the universal vision of Vasudeva. In other words, Krishna is everything, but yet he's one. And Krishna's mercy is everything. And Vasudeva is all in all, and no existence of anything without Vasudeva, without Krishna. That's Srimad Bhagavatam 1942. So we see this all-encompassing statements here, and the negation of them by the materialists. Then Prabhupada continues in this purport. He says, in the Chandogya Upanishad 5.1.15, it is said, Na vai vacho, na chakshumsi, na shrotrani, na mamam siti, achaksate prana iti vyachaksate prano hi evaitani sarvani bhavanti. In the body of a living being, neither the power to speak, nor the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is the life which is the center of all activities, or the life air. Similarly, Lord Vasudeva, or the personality Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is the prime entity in everything. In this body, there are powers of speaking, of seeing, of hearing, of mental activities, etc. But these are not important if not related to the Supreme Lord, and because Vasudeva is all-pervading and everything is Vasudeva, the devotee surrenders in full knowledge. So, this is also explained in Bhagavad Gita 7:17 and 11:40. Okay, so here we see exactly what Prabhupada's talking about, that Krishna is everything. And there's a full explanation in the 7th chapter of the material nature and the spiritual nature. He just summarized it in this verse, 7:19, the difference between the two. Okay, so how can we deal with all this? Well, we have to go to Brahma Samhita to understand this statement. When it says, because the empiric philosophers and mystic yogis cannot conceive of the personality of Godhead, he is called Anupalakshya Vartamane, the Lord of the inconceivable way, or Bhakti Yoga. Now, what is inconceivable about Bhakti Yoga? Well, that's explained in Brahma Samhita 5:37, 5th chapter, 37th verse. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavitabis Tavirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasat Akilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. It's a very important verse. It has the longest purport in the Bhakti Rasam, in the Brahma Samhita. And I'm not going to read the whole thing now because it's very long. It's like 6-7 pages. But you can imagine how important this verse is, right? And this is written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. This is Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So, this verse, first of all, reads, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure. So Radharani describing Krishna and Radharani, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidence, Shakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. Okay, so let's read that slowly. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm. That's Goloka Vrindavan, right? This is also explained in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the same point, that where it says, Parastasmat tubhava vyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana. So that's the 8th chapter, verse number 20. Yet there is another unmanifested nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all this world is annihilated, that part remains. So we already read that. That's what's being said here, that's his own realm, or Goloka. With Radha, Now the next part is all about Radharani. Resembling his own spiritual figure. His is capitalized, so it's referring to Krishna. It says that Radharani is resembling his own spiritual figure. Yeah, she has one head, 2 arms, 2 legs, like that, right? And it says, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities. Now, this is what is inconceivable to the karmis. That the devotional service, which is Radharani's ecstatic potency. And it has 64 artistic activities. So this is completely different than anything Socrates or Plato said, or any Greek philosopher. It's completely different than anything the Mayavadis say. And it's incomprehensible to a materialist. In the company of her confidants, Shakis, embodiments of the extension of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. So rasa means relationship with Krishna, right? So in the purport, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada says, although the absolute truth and his potency are one and the same and the self-same existence, still they exist eternally as separate entities as Radha and Krishna. Nobody will accept that statement. No materialist would ever accept a statement like this. In both the ecstatic energy and the transcendental Lord Krishna, there exists Shringara Rasa, amorous love, whose quality is inconceivable. Amen. This is a fact. It's inconceivable, Krishna's transcendental bliss in the association of Srimati Radharani and the gopis and the gopas and the residents of Vrindavan. It's inconceivable to materialists. It's inconceivable to Plato and Socrates. So we're dealing with something that hardly one person or few people in the world can actually understand, right? But if we engage in devotional service, we begin to understand it because we can actually experience it. Ecstasy of an ecstatic kirtan, chanting Hare Krishna, dancing in ecstasy. We begin to understand, we begin to experience what this means, transcendental ecstasy. So I'll stop right there because it's a very long purport and it becomes more and more ecstatic. So I don't want to ruin your day where you can't think of anything else but this. You would not be able to function. You'd go into a blissful state, samadhi or something. So we'll keep that for the future. This purport is so amazing. So then, what is again explained in 8th chapter, it says that that which the Vedantas, is text number 21, that which the Vedantas describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. So now Krishna is describing what happens if you go back to Godhead. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to do that. I'd never be able to come back. I can't visit Bellevue or Medina, or I can't go to the Costco. No. I can't live without these things. Right? That means they have absolutely no understanding of what's being said here. And then Prabhupada explains, the supreme abode of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is described in the Brahma Samhita as Chintamani Dhamma. Oh, well, that's what we just read, 5th chapter, 37th verse. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. This is a place where Krishna's transcendental loving relationships are going on. A place where all desires are fulfilled. Oh my God, that should be what we should be striving for. A place where all desires are fulfilled. But there's all spiritual desires, of course. The supreme abode of Lord Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavana, is full of palaces made of touchstones. Touchstone means whatever it touches turns into, increases its potency. It becomes hundreds and millions of times greater than what it is. And it can create things, right? and sustain things. So a touchstone is something very special. And look up touchstone in the dictionary. Look it up. Touchstone. Touchstone. There are also trees called desire trees that supply any type of eatable upon demand. Now, have you ever heard of any tree like that? You know, it can supply anything you want to eat. You just ask it. And there are cows, known as surabi cows, which supply limitless supply of milk. In this abode, the Lord is served by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune, Lakshmis, and he is called Govinda, the primeval Lord and the cause of all causes. What does it say? Touchstone. Keep going. Any more definitions of it? Does it have an archaic meaning? How it was used in the past? Those are modern definitions of it. Okay, anyway, we'll continue. The Lord is accustomed to blow his flute, venum quantum. His transcendental form is the most attractive in all the worlds. His eyes are like lotus petals, and the color of his body is like the color of clouds. He is so attractive that his beauty excels that of thousands of cupids. He wears saffron cloth, a garland around his neck, and a peacock feather in his hair. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna gives only a small hint of his personal abode, Goloka Vrindavana, which is the supermost planet in the spiritual kingdom. A vivid description is given in the Brahma Samhita. Vedic literatures, Katha Upanishad 1.3.11 state that there is nothing superior to the abode of the Supreme Godhead, and that abode is the ultimate destination. Purushan na param kinchit na kasta paramagati. When one attains to it, he never returns to the material world. Krishna's supreme abode and Krishna himself are non-different, being of the same quality. This being of the same quality, on this earth, Vrindavana, 90 miles southeast of Delhi, is a replica of that supreme Goloka Vrindavana located in the spiritual sky. When Krishna descended on this earth, he sported on that particular tract of land known as Vrindavana, comprising about 84 square miles in the district of Mathura, India. And so is there archaic meaning to touchstone? Did you type that out? Archaic meaning of touchstone. Okay, historical meaning of touchstone. Does it say anything? Okay. So, this is all amazing information. But it continues. Text 22. Parasa Purusha Partha Bhakta Labhyas Tvananyaya. Yasyantak Stani Bhutani Yena Sarvam Idam Tatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. So, attainable by unalloyed devotion, well, this is explained even more in the 9th chapter, the next verse, where it says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavicham Idam Uttamam Patyaksha Dharmam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. That this knowledge of Krishna is Susukam kartum avyayam. It's unending and it's full of bliss. Because the bliss, the nature of the bliss is in the rasa, the relationship with Krishna. And it's inconceivable and wonderful and always full of bliss. It's ecstatic. Again, it says, it is here clearly stated that the supreme destination from which there is no return, in other words, talking about Goloka, is the abode of Krishna, the Supreme Person. The Brahma Samhita describes the supreme abode as Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Well, that's again text 37. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa means the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the so it's this description of Radharani and her relationship with Krishna, which is full of transcendental bliss, and she has these 64 artistic qualities by which she expresses a myriad number of emotions of love of Krishna. And it's a long explanation here of those 64 qualities. But the first one is Gita, the art of singing, and then Vadya, the art of playing musical instruments, and then Nritya, the art of dancing, and Natya, the art of theatricals, and Alekya, the art of painting. So she has all these 64 qualities, artistic and crafts, that are necessary in order to express the millions of different nuances of her love for Krishna. So this is what is Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, a place where everything is full of spiritual bliss. All the variegatedness there is of the quality of spiritual bliss. Nothing there is material. That variegatedness is expanded as the spiritual expansion of the Supreme Godhead Himself. For the manifestation there is totally of the spiritual energy, as explained in chapter 7. In other words, it's always increasing, it never decreases. As far as the material world is concerned, although the Lord is always in His supreme abode, He is nonetheless all-pervading by His material energy. So, by His spiritual and material energies, He is present everywhere, both in the material and in the spiritual universes. Yasyantakstani means that everything is sustained within Him, within either His spiritual or material energy. The Lord is all-pervading by these two energies. See, this Bhagavad Gita has everything in it. But yet, it escapes us, because we're still, so attached that we read it, but we still don't understand what it's saying. You have to, but little by little, by the regular hearing, it becomes more and more real to us. To enter Krishna's supreme abode or the innumerable Vaikuntha planets is possible only by bhakti, devotional service, as clearly indicated here by the word bhaktya. So what are we talking about? We're talking about He is called Anupalakshya Vartamane, the Lord of the inconceivable way, or bhakti yoga. Right? That one statement expands into Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita, Nectar of Devotion, that one little statement. Right? No other process can help one attain the supreme abode. The Vedas, Gopala Tapani Upanishad 3.2, also describes the supreme abode and the supreme personality of Godhead. Eko Vasi Sarvaga Krishnaha. In that abode, there is only one supreme personality of Godhead, whose name is Krishna. He is the supreme, merciful deity, and although situated there as one, He has expanded Himself into millions and millions of plenary expansions. Yeah, there's a Narayana expansions, the first Chaturvyuha, then the Narayana expansions, and then the second Chaturvyuha, and the Vishnu expansions in the material world. That's millions and millions and millions and billions of expansions that are non-different than Him. The Vedas compare the Lord to a tree standing still, yet bearing many varieties of fruits, flowers, and changing leaves. The plenary expansions of the Lord who preside over the Vaikuntha planets are four-armed, and they are known by a variety of names: Purushottama, Trivikrama, Keshava, Madhava, Aniruddha, Rishikesha, Sankarsana, Pradumna, Sridhara, Vasudeva, Damodara, Janardana, Narayana, Vamana, Padmanabha, etc. The Brahma Samhita 537 also confirms that although the Lord is always in the supreme abode, Goloka Vrindavan, he is all-pervading, so that everything is going on nicely. Goloka eva nimisata kilatma bhutaha. As stated in the Vedas, Svatesvatara Upanishad 6.8, Parasya Sakti Vivadaiva Suyute Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriyacha. His energies are so expansive that they systematically conduct everything in the cosmic manifestation without a flaw, although the Supreme Lord is far, far away. So, this is all high-class information, or best-class information. And that's why this little purport has huge expansions. And this is only the beginning of the process of creation of the material world, to understand the greatness of Krishna. He's unparalleled in his greatness. There cannot be anyone equal to him. There cannot be anyone greater than him. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions?
One reference to touchstone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sanatana Goswami.
Sanatana Goswami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a touchstone.
Yeah.
And he had kept it in garden.
Yeah. And that devotee of Shiva came,
Yeah.
and he wanted the best thing. So he said, "For you, this is the best thing." He said, "Go on the garbage there, you can pick it." So he picks it, it's a touchstone. Well, what's a touchstone?
Yeah, it is. You can turn anything to gold.
Yeah, you see? That's exactly what the karmis want. So there was a man who was lost in the desert. And he was going to die of thirst. And all of a sudden, he sees an oasis. And, oasis is in a desert, right? But there's some water there. And because there are trees. So there are such things as oases in the desert, right? So he goes there, and he lays down. He's exhausted, right? And he's half dead. And he's under this tree. And he's thinking, oh, how it'd be so nice to have some cool water to drink. So his eyes are closed when he says this. And he opens his eyes, and all of a sudden, there's cold water there. And he's amazed. And he drinks it, right? And it quenches his thirst and gives him strength again. And he's just amazed. And he says, oh, that was nice, but it'd be really great if I had a bed, a soft bed, because it's nice and cool here. I don't feel the hot sun here because there are these palm trees. He opens his eyes and there's a bed right there. And then he realizes there's something about this tree. Right? So he lays down in the bed and he said, oh, it'd be so nice if there was some pretty woman in this bed. He opens his eyes, and there's a pretty woman right there. And she's, warm-blooded. And he's amazed. And he said, but we must have the best wine to enjoy each other. He opens his eyes, and there's a bottle of wine also in 2 glasses. So he pours one for himself, one for her. And he said, but I need money. He said, give me the strength, give me the power. Anything I touch turns to gold. He opens his eyes, he's looking around, and he touches the woman, and she turns to gold. And he's shocked. He said, "Oh my God, what did I do?" Anyway, I'm hungry, so he tries to eat something, it turns to gold. Then he realizes that this is actually a curse, it's not a blessing. And he dies of starvation and thirst. He tries to drink some water, it turns to gold. So this is an interesting story. Be careful of what you desire. Haribol. Yeah, that's the meaning of touchstone. Good. And, well, yeah, there is something like that. Well, see, what was the modern material definition of it? It's you can recognize if something is gold or not by touching it to the stone, right? Who? Who's one? Oh, okay. That's terrible. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so very interesting, all these things. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. You see, it's all there in these books. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita. It's all there. But are we willing to sit down and hear it on a regular basis? That's the point. Because you see, the further we go, the more ecstatic it becomes. Yet, all